Hey there. We're on week 11, and I'm going to be talking about HTML5 um, games. And again, all of these creative programming assignments, three of them, are just to sort of approach Canvas in another way, right? So the first one was Canvas introduction, play with how to create lines and circles and half circles. And some animation. Then we're in the middle of sort of doing the processing one, which is due next. I'm sorry, this coming Friday. The next thing that I'm talking about today is using Canvas for games, and basically for this week, get that creative programming 2 in by Friday, and then the just explore this HTML5 games demo, which I'm going to walk through. Uh, Workshop is going to be all things Canvas. Any questions you have about Canvas? I might talk about some alternatives of animation. SVG, as I said, I'm not teaching SVG, but that is something that could be of interest to those of you who are good with Illustrator. You can export an SVG file and use JavaScript to manipulate and animate that Illustrator file. And there's lots of resources on that. I mean, again, for these projects, it's all about Canvas, and for your final project, you can explore other things or expand your knowledge of Canvas. Okay. So the creative programming project number 3 is due November 13th. It is to explore this. It's a short demo. Explore the demo and build your own game out of that demo. And I'll go over some of these student works after I talk about this demo here. So the first thing I had, that's spelled wrong. Request animate frame. So this is, if I were to show you here, this is the canvas face. There's several options, right? So you can set interval, right? And set interval will animate face every second. You can also set timeout. Now this is a function. This timer goes inside of the function and then runs that function again. So it's this is a recursion, meaning it's run inside of itself. But basically, it runs the animate, waits a second, and then runs it again. So there's two different ways to do that, right? Now, the third way is to use this window.requestAnimateFrame, in which you put the function that you want to run. And this does also go inside of the animate face function, or whatever function that you're running to animate. And then we need to make sure that we call the function to start things. So, but the thing is that animate frame does this. It's 60 frames per second. So it does it's a good job of animating, but for this case, it's too fast. So if you're going to get into some kind of animation work, explore the animate frame technique rather than the set interval, because your browser is going to appreciate it more in terms of lots of animation. But I want to say also this link explains a bit about. I have this link. Yeah, this link explains about the differences between them. And again, this is for people who are kind of really into this kind of animation stuff. I'm opening doors for you. I'm not going into super detail. It would cover a lot more weeks to do that. So we're gonna go here, back here, and then the other thing is that with the assignment that's due this Friday, remember that P5 is a processing language that has become a library for JavaScript. So 5 refers to, I think, HTML5, and maybe not. Maybe it's just the version. And the JS, it means that you can now use it in JS, right? But it is you do need the library to access it, and it works with the canvas, and it works in very similar ways to all the things we've talked about with canvas, with drawing lines. But it also has lots and lots of different functions embedded in it to do, you know, kind of wild drawings or kind of animated geometric designs. And for this assignment, I would just go look at examples and like just look at stuff that has appeal, right? That's kind of funny. That has appeal for you that you could just play with and explore and get familiar with this plugin. And I mean, hopefully you'll be able to read this now. That's an empty array. Create canvas. There's a for loop that's going to increment. It's actually going to add different widths, incremental widths into those arrays. Now, I'm just clicking on this now, but I think that the point is for you to be able to read these things and how they're using arrays and how they're using conditionals and stuff like that. Now, keep just exploring. I mean, there's a lot here that you could play with, and then build off for your other projects, okay? And then don't forget that there is a reference. If there's some function that you'd like to use that you see in something and you want to kind of use it, just look up how it works, like curves and things like that. There's a lot here I have not explored, believe me. You can work with video. Now this video is actually, well, that's not here. Look at the examples for video. Here, sorry, video canvas. That's just clicking. There is a video one that's kind of cool, pixels, video pixels. So this is, you can see that that's a video that's been transformed. Okay, so explore. Really, this is about having fun. I think you can read this stuff by now in terms of how JavaScript is creating pixel animations or drawings. Okay. Now we're getting into the HTML5 game stuff, and I'm going to point you to it here. So this is like typical kind of game. You've seen this before, and when I hit something, it recognizes the collision and stops. Okay. Now, if you go to this, so this is the game you're building up, and these are all the different things explained. I'm going to walk through their example here and just show you how you can read this, and actually it's very accessible if you just slow down. So in this case, we have an accelerate button, which is using gravity as a property of this thing, okay? And you can play with values. What I would do is find some example of a game or structure that you want to work with, and then what you do is just copy all of this and put it into your project and start off by playing with values. I'll show you, I'm going to walk through these kind of quickly, but again, if you understand the basics, I think you'll kind of pick up on how it's all working. So we have, these are, of course it's using var, not let, but we're going to use let. The body doesn't have anything in it. On load, it starts the game, and that's the start game right there. We have three variables, my game piece, my obstacles, my score. So my score is actually being inserted as an object into the page. The obstacles are multiple, so that's why it's an empty array, right? So what's going to happen is this array is going to get populated with different types of lines that are doing that. And then my game piece is currently not, it doesn't have any value, but we're going to use it later. So the start game is what we begin when we load the page. And you'll see my game piece, which has already been declared as a global variable. It's now local here. It is new component, and then all these different things. And you say to yourself, well, what is that? Well, if you go down and look at this, this is a function for component. Now, I kind of went quickly through this part when we talked about classes and objects. Before we did classes, this is how we created an object constructor. An object constructor is a generic object maker that when you populate it with these values, you create a new object, right? So that's kind of what classes do when they have this, with the, meaning the different properties, as I showed with the meal planner. So we're grabbing this object constructor to construct a game piece. And it's 30 by 30 with the color red. And then we have to look down here. This is, I'm sorry, this is the width, the height, the color, the X and Y position, and the type. Now let's see what it says for type. So that's just X and Y position. Type is not in there. It's just not needed, I guess. All right. Okay, so I was trying to track down the reason why the value here for the height is using the font type, and I haven't found the answer yet. But I do know that the type is added on here that this doesn't have, because the component does have that type, which is text. Okay. So the score is generated also as a new component, and then we start the game. And my game area is down here. Okay. So my game area is a list of properties. It has the canvas. Now we've done this in different ways, right? We've declared a canvas on the page, but this is creating a canvas dynamically, calling it canvas. We have a start function here that sets the canvas height, width, and height, and the context for 2D. And this just inserts some stuff, a child node. I think it's that accelerate button. The frame number, this has to do with the animation, and set an interval to update. Now this is, so this animation is actually using set interval rather than the request animation whatever. I forget what I was talking about before, but it's request animation frame, right? So this is using set interval to refresh the page every well, 20. We'll see what the refresh rate is later, I guess. There's a clear function that clears the rectangle so that the animation works smoothly, right? It's clear, start again, draw, clear, and every time it's drawn, these are moving across the page. Okay, now this is the constructor, and this constructor will be used again. It's used for the red piece, it's used for the score, and it will be used for the green things in a little bit. And we have all those properties that get set up here. Now, let me explain about gravity. Gravity is actually a property generated here, and then there's a gravity speed. So it's an equation for the gravity and the speed of the gravity. You'll see. Remember, this works by, the gravity works. It's going to sink down, but when you click, you can hover the piece, and that's what those settings do. Is they determine how responsive that is to moving it up from falling. Okay, then we have an update, and this update, we have to keep checking this whatever component to make sure that it is staying within the bounds. Well, to a certain extent. I mean, these are going off, but we also need to detect the collision, which is down here. So and then there's the speed and everything else. So what's happening is we get the update that will um, turn the text a certain color, and I think this update. Um, sorry, just a second. So we have the start here, clear, and the update. This is. It looks like it's just filling in. It's determining whether that is a text, in which case it has a font and a fill text color, and then if it's not a text, it's going to fill it in with whatever color is determined for the object. Okay, that doesn't, that's not a big deal in terms of this animation. But the next is again, these are all this functions, right? So new position is calculating the gravity speed, whatever that is set, plus equals the gravity property. The acceleration speed is the acceleration on x and acceleration on y, and is adding the gravity to that for the y, of course. And then there's this hit bottom. So hit bottom, right, is where it kind of does this kind of lands, right? So the speed gravity goes 0, and this is just determining like how that reacts when it hits the bottom. Now we get, and this is the thing I want to talk about, because the reason for Canvas is because collision detection, when you're outside of any kind of structured pixel relationship, like on a browser, it's hard to determine how things, when they hit. It's possible, but it's not very reliable. What Canvas does, as I explained, is that it has a grid system that you can set it up, and then it's not going to change when the browser opens and closes, gets wider, right? That pixel relationship maintains itself. And then what you're doing here is you're determining if an object is hitting or crossing over another object. So you notice that we have other object here as a variable, and we have the x on the object that we've built. We're determining whether this x, along with the width, of course, and then this y along with the height, and then checking out the other object's x and the other object's y relationships, and then we're getting the crash true, but we have to determine whether it's crash true or not. So what it's doing is kind of constantly checking with each frame rate whether the bottom is less than the other top, or or it's basically kind of checking in on all the different my left, my right, my top, my bottom, whether that is going to be in contact with the other object's properties. Does that make sense? And then that will return a crash false, in which case nothing happens. But the return crash will be something that will stop the game, and that is worked out with this particular function. The update game area is using okay, let me explain. So the update game means the refresh animation. And what's happening is you'll notice that here's a for loop that is going to, that's I++, right? If, just a second. This is determining whether it's going to crash. But here is the clear, right? Clear, and then increase the frame number by 1, which is this score is determined by the frame number, right? So it's like refresh, 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 and it's counting that increase. Now, so it's if it's exactly equal 1 every interval 150. So it's just a second. Pause. Okay, so sorry, I needed to take a little closer look here. So the update game area is basically generating all these green lines, and these are all these values that are going to be determined, right? This is just checking for the crash. This clears. We're increasing the frame number. And here's the conditional that says, okay, let's create another, um, the properties for another green line here. And you can see that it has min height and max height, so it's between 20 and 200, right? And then there's the height is determined with a random number generated that's calculating between the 20 and 200. And there's also a gap that is either 50 or 200. That's the gap that's separating out here. And that is determined, the gap itself is a random number that's between 50 and 200. And then we have my obstacles is a variable, right? So, I mean, it's an array. It's an empty array which allows you to push new, where are we? To push new components. And here's a new component. It's going to be, it's going to have a position of, an x position of 10, which is, sorry, just I'm getting tangled up here. We got width. So it's 10 pixels wide. I keep forgetting those first values are not position. They are the width and height. So that's determined. That's always going to be 10 pixels wide, and its height is going to be calculated based on this random number. It's going to be the color green. X is going to be whatever X is. Just a second. We have to find out what X is. X is the game area canvas width. That means it starts at the far right. All right, and then we have another another component. Just a second here. We have 10, but x minus the height minus the gap. Just give me a second. I think this is just is giving us some alternations between. Oh no, I see. Got it. Okay, because there are these two different lines that create this gap. It's doing the calculation for the other line. Okay, so that's where this x minus height minus gap is. That is the same value. Same value x, but it's allowing for the gap, and that's just the calculation for that gap. Okay, sorry about that. And then once those new objects are in the array, then we can really start pushing them inside of. So again, we're running through the array that's being generated and increasing the x value by 1 or by -1 to have it move from the right to the left, and then updating it. Okay, we get the score placed in there, and we're updating. Again, you can go back and see what update is, and then we have a new. We have to determine the new position for the game piece and update the game piece because we're moving it around. Finally, there's the every interval. Now, this every interval is I think this is determining whether you're at the start of the game or not. And then the accelerate is the function that will determine the gravity based on the mouse down or mouse up, right? So you'll notice that if you click, so mouse on, mouse down, let's just try this. So on mouse down, it's going up, and so the accelerate is, oh, I'm sorry. Gosh. Well, it's obviously that we're increasing with we're decreasing the gravity. That's the, it's a negative number because we're decreasing that gravity by pushing the accelerate button, right? So uh, we're making that change to the gravity. Of course, if it's negative, it means it's anti-gravity. Okay. All right, guys. I'm sorry that this is so. I think what you'll find is, let me show you something. I can win this game by just doing going up to my speed. Where's my speed? My piece speed. I just did this. I think this was it. So I'll show you again. Boop. Oh, try it again. Boop. I won. Okay, so that's the speed on that x value, and it's it starts at 0 because you're not moving it, but as you oh, in this case, I can't use my arrows. All I have access to here. But so other versions of this game, you can move the arrows to move the red obstacle through this tangle. Okay. All right. I'm gonna let's see. Not gonna leave it there. I have something else to talk about, and that is, keep going back. Okay. So again, you're using some aspects of what you're learning in this tutorial, and then building your own game. And you can just do this in your pods and just work it out, and then kind of go off and play around with on your own. And I guess I said this is going to prepare those of you who want to do a game for your final project. This will prepare you to kind of get an understanding of how it works. And I did want to show you these are different student final projects based on this. And this one has got some random. There's a sound here where there should be thunder coming on and off. I'm not hearing it though. But we have. Oh, here we go. Sorry, it's going to be very loud. But I am moving this guy around, and I need to get to the door. Oh no, I need to get to the key. So the ghost is hovering around the key. I want to avoid hitting the ghost. The ghost is hovering around the key based on the position of the key, and the key is placed randomly. And as it refreshes, it's just moving the value, XY value of the ghost around that key. Meanwhile, I'm trying to get down to it, and there it is. I got it, and now the ghost has moved to the door, and I'm going to try to get through the door, and I won. Okay. So these kinds of games we have start. So this is another one of those. I didn't do well on that, but just variations on these kinds of games. Here's a different kind of. Again, these are final projects, I believe, but this is using the accelerate. I see what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go here, and then just find your way to bounce. So you can look at the code for these and just get some ideas. Again, don't get too heavy into the design. If you want to do this for your final project, that would work too. So this is this is all using those examples. Okay. Now finally, I want you still to really think about your final project. quite open. Must include your own scripting and JavaScript. jQuery is optional, and design with HTML, CSS. I'm going to quickly go through this. Blah, blah, blah. I encourage those of you who want to get into development, I encourage you to try a React, and I will take into consideration that that's a new kind of thing that you're learning. It's been hit or miss with students doing it because it's a lot of work setting it up, and I don't have a lot of experience React, but I know those of you who are kind of eager for your jobs in development, that would be helpful to you if you try it out. So I will allow that. And designers, those of you who are sort of front-end designers or more focused on design, I would explore kind of do some front-end jQuery kinds of things in some kind of interactive learning module or animated infographic, something that would look good in your portfolio in terms of design and interactivity. So if you want to build games, like robust games, big games, I will allow teamwork. You got to talk to me, and it's, I think, no more than 2 people working on a game together. And this is this is kind of going a little bit beyond just the HTML5 canvas games. Maybe there's a sort of bigger understanding of a bigger approach about what you want to do for a game. You will be graded on your own scripting, and I will also be grading on interface and interaction design and the completion of the actual content part. So do pay attention to the design end of things. We're going to be, so I do want in the final project weeks, like a couple weeks at the end here, when we start the final project, is I want you to constantly update and upload. I don't want to see empty, like when I go to follow the link, I don't want to see everything empty. I want you to do some work and upload it. And that way I can see your development, I can check in with you and follow what you're doing. And so that's going to be part of the grade, is that you're working a little bit at a time and building these projects. You're not leaving it to the very end. That's no way to build a project, okay? On your final projects, include a brief statement. This can be, like a commented out description on your HTML, or it can be a link to another page statement or a download of a PDF or something. I just want all your projects to have statements attached to them about what you used, how, what tools, what examples, what you were trying to do. Okay? I think that's it. And again, we're meeting on workshop to basically answer your questions and help you out. Okay? I think that's it. All right. Bye.